Hello and welcome to my channel. Around here we like to tinker, experiment, and build things in a fun, unique way. In this video I'm going to show you how I created a way to power a regular lamp without having to plug it into a wall. In my house I have two spots where I wanted lamps, but I didn't want to have cords running across the floor. I looked at the cordless lamps out there, but I wanted to use the lamps I already had. There are some videos out there already that show how to do this, but it usually involves modifying the lamp and using a battery that probably won't last very long. My method requires zero modifications to the lamp. Just swap out the bulb and you'll use the existing cord that will plug into the battery with a simple adapter. I know it's not technically cordless, but it doesn't have to plug into a wall, which makes it work for me. Here's one of my lamps in action. Let's jump over to my workbench and I'll show you how to put one of these together. To build the adapter, you're going to need a few things. An extension cord to begin. This is an ordinary household extension cord, but I prefer to use one that is polarized so that you can prevent a reverse polarity situation if you happen to use the battery for other things as well, which I'll talk about in a future episode. You can tell if it's polarized by checking out the prongs on the end, where you plug it into the wall. You'll see one side is bigger than the other. Also, on the female plug-in side, you'll see one of the slots is bigger than the other. I also have another cord here that I've previously modified that I'll be using again here for this video. You'll also need a pair of wire cutters or wire strippers. You'll need one with a crimping tool on the end for the spade connectors that we need also. Next up is the bulb. I'm using a 12 volt, 7 watt, 500 lumen bulb. I've been using the same model bulb in two separate lamps for 4.5 years at the time of this filming with no issues, so I would recommend them. However, there may be other bulbs out there with a lower wattage. Just be aware of the lumen value. That's how bright the bulbs will be. And a battery, of course. It should be a 12 volt DC or whatever voltage matches your bulb and needs to be a sealed style. That way you don't have to worry about any leaks on your carpet or floor. In this case, I'm using a 12 volt, 12 ampere hour battery. It's on the bigger side, but I've found through trial and error that smaller batteries will not last as long as I'd like. You can do a basic calculation to determine how big of a battery you'll need depending on the bulb you use and how long you want the light to run before you must recharge it. You can estimate how long the battery will last by multiplying the ampere hours of the battery by the voltage. 12 ampere hours times 12 volts gives me about 144 watt hours. Then you divide this watt hour by the wattage of your bulb, in my case that's 7, and you'll get an estimate of how long the battery should last. This is a rough estimate because there will be resistance in the wiring, temperature variations, health of the battery, etc., etc. In my case, I'm getting around 20 hours on paper, but it's certainly a bit less than that. From my experience, I know I will certainly get used throughout the week, and the bulb will only start to dim towards the end. You'll need a battery charger as well. In my case, I'm using a smart charger maintainer because I charge a lot of different batteries, some at 6 volts, but most at 12. I've had this Ampeak charger for a little over a year. It's been a really great charger and I would recommend it. There are certainly less expensive chargers out there. Just make sure that you use one that has a 12 volt battery at around 2 amps. You can also use a car battery charger if you have one. Again, just make sure you charge it on low amps or trickle charging. That prolongs the life of the battery. The last thing on the list is some tape. This is used just to secure the battery to prevent the terminals from getting disconnected. I typically use packing tape, but you can use Scotch tape or masking tape. In case you missed anything, I have a full list of all the items and tools used in the description below. Alright, let's get to building. We'll start with the power cord. We'll only be using the female side, so estimate how much cord you will need to reach your lamp and cut at that point. My battery sits right under the end table and the lamp cord is already long enough, so I only need about a foot or less of cord. Now after you cut the cord, we're going to work on splitting the two wires apart and strip off the insulator. This is a little bit tricky. These wires are usually pretty well stuck together, but if you pull hard enough, they will come apart. And at that point, you'll strip the ends of each insulator off, leaving about a 1/4 inch or about 6 millimeters of bare wire showing on each side. All right, once that is done, we're going to grab our first spade connector. I use medium spade connectors. Push on the first one so that it goes on as far as possible, then crimp the connector on. Give it a slight tug to make sure it's not going to come loose. Then we'll repeat this for the other wire. Alright, at this stage you can determine if you want to mark the cord for polarity. As you can see on my cord, I've already marked one side with a black marker to illustrate it will be the negative polarity. If you're going to just use this battery for a lamp, you won't need to do this, polarity won't matter. And that's the hard part. Now we're just going to take this cord and plug in the connectors of the battery. In this case I am using polarity marking, so I'm going to take my black side of my wire, put it on my black terminal, and on the other side we'll put the other terminal on. Now we'll use the tape to secure the wire to the battery to keep it from getting pulled loose. Alright, let's go finish this up and test out our lamp. Okay, I brought in my battery setup and I have my lamp. So now I'll screw in my 12-volt bulb. Then I'll just plug in my light cord into the battery cord. We'll turn on the light, and there you go. Now, if you've ordered a new battery, I'd recommend giving it a charge overnight before using it long term, just in case. Just a reminder, don't plug anything else into your battery cord that's not made to run off the 12 volts DC. The regular electrical items around your house are designed to work on AC voltage, not DC, and will not work and could even damage the battery. If your cord has outlet covers, go ahead and use those to cover any unused outlets on the cord. You can power multiple 12-volt lamps on one battery in this setup, but just keep in mind the charge won't last quite as long if you put more lamps onto it. When it's time to charge the battery, all you'll need to do is disconnect the lamp cord and bring the battery to your charger. If you have alligator clips like this style, you just need to clip them onto the battery terminal underneath the spade terminals. I'll make sure my charger is set to 12 volts, 2 amp charge. I'll hook it up and let it charge overnight, and when I come back the next morning, it will be ready to go. I hope you enjoyed this video and it helped you out with a project you might be working on or maybe you want to do. Be sure to like this video if so, and also leave me comments if you have any questions. This is my first video here, so your feedback will help me determine my path. Thanks a lot.